Hello everyone, it's Christine again, coming to you very late in the evening since I've worked all day and cooked dinner, and now I'm about to film a cookery class for you once again. So welcome. This is another in the series from the Lakeside Church, Toronto, in our TLC Arts and Skills. So most of you know that usually I would be doing arts and crafts, but once again, we are still in the lockdown, trying to be safe, trying to get through this coronavirus thing together. But we give thanks to God that we're here, we are safe, and there have been many benefits from coronavirus. Many of us have learned skills that we did not have before. However, this one that I'm going to share to you tonight, because it is night, so after I filmed, I don't know, I'm gonna have to change the position of the camera, and so I'm not sure about the lighting, so my face will not be on there, but I will be talking. So what I want to do is tell you about what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to get into that in a minute, but I just want to say I hope that you'll learn something from this, even if you don't try it, although I hope you will try it. And I also want to say thank you to my friend Naomi, who will be bringing the devotion to us I was going to say tonight, but it won't be tonight by the time you get it. We should be bringing the devotion whenever it's aired. Okay, so let's start on our British journey.
Hi everyone, it's Nami Ekanaika. Today from TLC Arts and Skills, Christine is doing a beautiful tarts and a baking session, and I'm so excited to do the devotional. And today, because it's something with food, I want to talk to you about feeding the 5,000. Even though it's a really common miracle that we have heard over and over again that Jesus performed while he was on earth, we can learn many things from feeding the 5,000. Truly, God is not asking you to feed the 5,000. God is asking you and me today. Our job is to provide the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Provide what we have. It might be something really, really small, but God is looking for someone who can offer what you have. When Jesus told the disciples, it says taken from John chapter 6, and Jesus tells the disciples, go and find something to feed these people. These people Jesus had compassion on them. Jesus wanted to feed them, the people who were following him. And when the disciples said, feed all these people, it's so many people. How can we feed so much people? Let's read John chapter 6. And it says that the crowd was with Jesus, and when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one of them to have a bite. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many? Jesus said, have the people sit down. There were plenty of grass on that place, and they sat down. Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. So this is a miracle that God performed, feeding the 5,000. And 5,000 was only the men that they count. But there were children and there were women around. There were so many people following Jesus, and Jesus had compassion on the people. And today Jesus wants us to be like him, having compassion on the people around us. Sometimes there are so many needs, so many wants, so many things around us, and we want to close our eyes towards it. Sometimes we think, why I cannot feed so much people, I cannot help so much people. I did already my part this month. How am I going to do for everyone? So God is asking us not to worry about that 5,000 people, because God will going to take the care of them. But God wants us to give what we have, and that is the 5 loaves that we had and the 2 fish. And it mentions here specifically, it was 2 small 5 loaves and 2 small fish. 2 small 5 loaves. 5 small 5 loaves and 2 small fish. Small is mentioned there. The boy had a small portion of his lunch that he was having for maybe his lunch or dinner where he was having for himself. But he was willing to give it to Jesus. And Jesus was able to take that small thing and perform a miracle. Sometimes God wants us to use whatever that God has given us. It might be a very tiny, small thing. Maybe a small amount of money that we can contribute towards the people suffering in India for the missions the church is donating for the people with the COVID for the mission in India. Or maybe you want to look out for someone who's sick, who you found out that they are not well. Maybe you want to contribute a meal for them. Maybe it is a really small thing, but God's gonna bless that and feed it to the 5,000. God's gonna make it to 5,000 people. That from that small food the boy had, he was able to feed many people. So God is going to encourage us today to use what he has given. It might be small, it might be little, but use it for God's glory. Jesus was happy. Jesus already knew what's going to happen when Jesus said, feed these people. And he knew what's going to happen. He already knows everything. He is so powerful. He is so strong. And he gave thanks to God. And that also shows that Jesus was so grateful for that little thing that he had, but he thanked God and God multiplied it. God is able to perform a miracle in our lives, even with the little we have. So let us have compassion in our heart for the lost. Let us have compassion on our heart for the needy. Let us have compassion on the situations around us, and let us not close our eyes on them. And let us use whatever we have. Maybe it might be a talent, maybe it might be ability, maybe it might be an encouraging word, maybe financially if we don't have, you can call them, encourage them, boost their faith in God. You can do many things. Or maybe in the garden, pick up some flowers and send it to them, drop it off. Something small, but God's going to do mighty things through that something small that you have. So let us be encouraged as we make these tarts with Christine, and as we learn to do these beautiful talents that Christine is showing us. And even through COVID, it has been, even though the dollar shops, we cannot take whatever we want, the craft supplies, Christine has been creative in finding ways to have our daily, whatever that is at our home, sugar, flour, small essence, whatever we have, egg, whatever we have, the common ingredients to make something beautiful. And let us remember, 5,000 people Jesus was able to feed with the 5 small loaves of bread and 2 small fish. And God is calling you and me not to feed the 5,000, not to feed the whole world, but He's calling us to provide the 5 loaves and the 2 fish that we have. that little bit of talent you have, the little bit of financial help you have, the little bit of compassion you have, the love you have. God wants us to share it with others. So I hope you were encouraged with this message, and I hope and you enjoy making the with Christine these beautiful tarts, and we would love to see pictures and share with each other. God bless you. We are so blessed that we are part of TLC family, that we are never alone. We are always together. We have family of TLC family, loved ones surrounding one another. So let us be that 5 loaves and 2 fish, that small gift that we can give to others, and God will do the multiplication. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
So tonight, we are going to make one of the things that I grew up with. I'm going back home to my second home, which is England. Many of you know that I was born in Jamaica, but I grew up most of my life, or for the first half of my life, in England. And I went through schooling, I did my nurse training there, and I also was a midwife. I don't know if anybody really knows that, but any case, whilst I was in school, I used to take something called home economics. And I don't know if you guys have done that, but in home economics, we learn to make British things, and that's where I learned to cook a few of the traditional British dishes. So today, or tonight, I am going to bring one for you to learn, hopefully, and to try, maybe, because I know a lot of you never take it up, but you know, at least it will be entertainment, and I hope you learn something. So today we're gonna do Bakewell Tart. So let me just read something. So Bakewell Tart is, first of all, what is it? It's a dessert, really scrumptious dessert, because I like it myself. And it's an almond dessert that is usually served with ice cream or custard. I even was thinking maybe I would try clotted cream. Sorry, Nicole, I could not find the unpasteurized cream. So if I ever get to find it, I'm going to do a separate video on how to make clotted cream. However, let me tell you, I'm just opening my phone. Let me tell you about the Bakewell Tart. The Bakewell Tart was originally a pudding. So, actually, I think I'm going to stop there because it seems like. So let me tell you about the Bakewell Tart. This was originally a pudding, and the name originated from a Derbyshire town that is actually called Bakewell. So the town was called Bakewell, and that's where this came from. So the origins of the pudding are not clear, but a common story is that it was first made by accident in the 1820s. So this thing has been around a long time. Mrs. Greaves was the landlady of the White Horse Inn. Now, apparently that's since been demolished, you would understand. She supposedly left instructions to her cook to make a jam tart. So I don't know if you have ever had a jam tart, but that's another one of the British kind of dishes. The cook, instead of stirring the eggs and the almond paste mixture into the pastry, spread it on top of the jam instead. And when cooked, the egg and almond paste set like a custard on the top. The result was successful enough for it to become a popular dish at the inn. So that's the story of how this thing came about. Let's see if it says anything else. I'm not sure whether this is accurate, but it sounds like a good story, and it's a good start to my introduction to Bakewell Tart. So let's get started. There are more than one way to make Bakewell Tart. It's traditionally made with almond flour, because I am going to have to do some sifting. So if you're going to do it the traditional way, you need almond flour, which is basically crushed up almonds. And I got this from Bulk Barn, thanks to Naomi, who, when I was there trying to figure out where to get it from, told me I could get it there. So almond flour is the traditional way of making it, and I am going to do that second, but because when I got the almond flour, I don't know if you can see this, it's got all of these, I guess they ground it with the brown part still on, and I really don't want it in there because traditionally it does not have like brown pieces. So I am actually going to have to sift this before I can use it, which is yet another step. However, we will come to that. So if you do not have almond powder, I have made another version of Bakewell Tart just with regular, it's like a sponge mixture, regular flour, and so the basic cream mixture, margarine, sugar, an egg, flour, and the main thing that you do need is, I hope you can see it, almond extract. So if you don't have the almond flour, you can use the almond extract, because this is the key ingredient. So I'm going to show you the easy way with pie crust. We are using the quick method. Now, I do want to say that I do know how to make pastry. I do know how to roll that out. Nicole, I'm speaking to you. I do know how to make that and use cold water and roll it out, but I have not got the time for that today. So we are glad that we have tender flake. And so we're going to make the small tart ones. So again, this is for Naomi, who'll probably be making this with her kids. And also, Nicole, this is for you because you might want to use it in your baking business with your son. So we're going to use the little tartlets here. Okay, so did I give you all of the ingredients? No. So the ingredients are the tartlets. Oh, so just a refresher, the ingredients are frozen tartlets or frozen pastry. We're going to use the simple creamed method. So we've got equal amounts of butter. I don't have butter, so it's margarine, softened, white sugar, and I'm using 1/3 of a cup. So I have 1/3 of a cup of butter, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, 1/3 of a cup of flour, 1 egg, a large one, your almond extract, which I've already told you is the essential piece, and traditionally raspberry jam. Not everybody likes the seedy parts of raspberry. So if you don't like raspberry jam, you can use strawberry jam. However, usually it needs to be a red jam. So red or even blackcurranty, I guess, although most of the time you don't really see that it's red. So use a red jam, okay? And that's it, apart from a little baking powder. So that's all of my, yes, that's all of the things. Oh, and probably I might use maybe a cherry on the top to decorate if I can find them. So let's start with the easy method, or the non-almond flour method. So the first thing we're going to do, I hope you can see me, is we're going to take out these little pastry containers. Yes. And I don't have one of the other, you can put it in a muffin tin or something like that, but because they come with the foil on them, they're okay in this. So the first thing we want to do is maybe take it out of the oven, out of the freezer, maybe about half an hour or so before you start to make it. And the thing we want this pastry to be a little bit cooked before we put the other stuff on. So we are going to preheat our oven. So I've preheated my oven at my usual 350 that I cook everything with. And I am now going to put it into the oven for about 5 minutes. And that way it's going to start to cook the pastry part before we go to the next level. So don't get distracted and let this cook too long. We just want it to start cooking, because if you make it go too long and the pastry really starts to harden, you're not going to get the best Bakewell tart. So just to start the cooking method, we're going to put it in the oven for about 5 to 6 minutes max, and then pull it out so that we can continue, okay? So whilst our pie is in there, our pie shells, I have poured it. Actually, I don't want to stand too close to my stuff because I don't want to breathe over it. I've poured in the sugar into the bowl, and we are going to mix it creamed method. So this is our creaming method, and I'm old-fashioned. I like to do this with my old-fashioned way with a wooden spoon. But if you want, and you have one of those nice, what do you call them? Food processors and mixers, you know, you go right ahead and use that thing. So once I've creamed it, the next thing in the creaming method is to beat up your egg and add it little by little into your mixed up sugar and butter mixture. So I'm just going to do that bit off camera, beat my egg, and then I'll come back to starting to add. Do not forget your things in the oven. So I've removed my pastry bases out of the oven, and you can see, oh, I dare not touch it. Anyway, you can see that it's not fully cooked, but it's just started to cook. And that's exactly where we want it. Now, whilst it's warm, I am going to take a spoon, because I want that to melt, and just put a little bit of jam in the base of each one of, so I'm using this much to put in the base. And if you know, you can always use these ones which have 50% less sugar if you're concerned about the sugar content. And that's what I'm doing in here. So let me show you what we have so far. I think this one needs a little bit more. So just about a teaspoonful of jam that's sitting on the base. And if you put it in, there we go. Can you see? There we go. If you put it in just as it comes out of the oven, then it just starts to melt down on the pastry. Okay, so we're going to put that aside. And in the meantime, I have beaten up my egg, and I'm going to now proceed with my creaming mixture. So for the creaming method, we're just going to add a little bit of the egg at a time. Mix it up completely. If you put too much of the egg in at one time, then your mixture is going to curdle. I learned that in school. So you see, it's still quite creamy. So I think probably maybe 3 times I'll do this. So I'll do the same thing again. Mix it up. If you want to use a hand mixer, go right ahead. If you don't have any power in your hands. So you see, it's still quite creamy and not curdled. Last one going in the bowl. Let's see, 3 minutes. I have to stop because I don't know how much I need on here to send it to Naomi, who's my editor. So next step is I have my flour, which I have added 1 teaspoon of the almond essence. Okay, what am I talking about? I've added 1 teaspoon of baking powder to this. Okay, so now I will add that to my creamed mixture and just slowly fold that in. So the folding method I was taught in school was you would kind of do it like a figure 8 kind of thing. Only I find that too difficult. So just gently stir your mixture so that it's completely mixed in with your egg. And it's like semi-runny. Like it should be able to kind of drop off your spoon. Now, of course, the last thing, or you could have actually put this in before, it doesn't really matter. But the last thing that we are going to add is this 1 teaspoon of almond essence or almond extract that I have. I think the essence is a little bit less almond flavor, but the extract is a bit stronger. So depending on how much almond you like, you know, it is supposed to be a very strong almond mixture, but it's up to you what you want to put in. So I'm going to use my almond extract, add it to this mixture, and I need to find my measurer, so I will come back to you. So once I have added the almond to the mixture, stir that in. Oh, and it already smells so good. Already smells so good. Now, I don't know if, I used to watch my mother baking, and I used to help her baking, and that was part of the way that I learned to bake. The other half was in school, as I said. So, we used to love, when my mother had finished baking, we always asked, after she had poured out all of the stuff into whatever baking pan or whatever she was doing, you know, it was the best thing to be given the mixing bowl with the uncooked mixture still left in there. I used to love to cream that thing out, and to be honest, I still do that. So I'm just going to just test this. I think this is okay. Now, we don't want it to be too heavy a mixture. It's supposed to be fairly soft. So I think that's about right. So the next thing I'm going to do is to spoon it on top of each of those pie trays. So just because I'm trying to do this quickly, I'm going to do that and then show you what it looks like. Now, I've already done some already. I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to cover that with my baking mixture. So we have pastry, we have jam, and then we have this big kind of mixture on the top. Okay, so we're almost done for that to go in the oven, and I think I have some extra mixture. I think this is really a mixture that could have done more than 6. I probably might even have done the full, oh, I only did 5, that's why. Anyway, so that's what's going in the oven. Now, because I want my thing to look a little bit pretty, I'm going to do something with it to add to the almond flavor. So this is for the this is slivered almonds, and I'm going to put that on the top. Just break up little pieces of it and throw it on the top. I'm showing you here, so you can see that that's all I'm doing. Breaking the pieces up and throwing them right on the top of the mixture. And that's to your taste as to how many. So let me show you. This is our mixture before it goes in the oven, and I am going to add one extra bit to that. I'm just going to find a cherry and put on top. So here are my Bakewell Tarts ready to go in the oven. I found some, I call them glassy cherries. I don't know what people refer to them, but you know those cherries that you bake with. Cut them in half and put them on the top with the flaked almonds. So now these are gonna go into the oven, I think for about 30 minutes because they're not very big. But usually I don't even worry with what the recipe says. I literally just wait until they get golden brown and then test them with a knife. So this is the Bakewell tarts that are, you know, individual that, you know, you could do with your kids. This is the easy method. So we'll pop these in the oven and then we'll attempt the traditional method. Now let's move to our larger Bakewell tart recipe. Now again, there are various ways of doing this, but I just do it my way very quickly, which is basically the same way as I did the other thing with the creaming method, except that this time we're going to mix the flour, so it will be 1/4 of the flour to 3/4 of the almond mixture. And I did say that I had to sift it, so I'm just going to go through the things that we need. I'll give you the amounts in a minute because I need to be sure I'm giving you the right information. But for this, we are going to do the same thing with our tender flake crust pastry. This one, we're going to prepare it. I'm going to show you how we do that first. I'm just going to use one of these pie crusts. So again, you don't want it out of the oven too long ahead, but we want to be able to let this start to cook. Now, because it's a large one, this in the middle can actually rise, and we don't want it to do that. So I have to look for my parchment paper, and basically what you're going to do is put a square of parchment paper on to the base of the pie crust and use anything dried to weight it down. So you can use rice, or I have this soup mix that I'm just going to use to put that on there on top of the parchment paper to keep it down whilst it's in the oven, and that is going to stop the middle of the pie from raising and not being flat, because then it's going to alter the look of your pie. Okay, so let me prep that. So I've already looked in the oven, and I can see that the ones that I first made are rising too high. So here is I think this is a good level to put in the smaller cups, probably about a tablespoon, because the mixture is going to rise and then you're going to lose the cherries, I realize. So here's the addendum: do not put too much of the mixture into your on top of your jam. So we're gonna put these in the oven and see what they're like. Here you can see I'm starting the next one, and I found my parchment paper. I put it on top of the pastry, and I've weighted it down with whatever dried goods that I can find. And now this is the first process where it goes into the oven for about, I think maybe this might be about 8 minutes or so, but again, the aim is to start the cooking but not to overdo it so that you know, your pastry is too hard. Want to show you what happened when I got distracted to my pie. It's now too dry. Well, actually it's just baked, and I left it in too long. So this will not work. So I've done it again. And this time I left it in for about 5 minutes, and no, I left it in with the peas for about 10 minutes, and then took the peas off and just put it in for another 2 minutes or so. So again, it's starting to cook, and I'm just going to lay that aside. Our other ones are nearly done. Now I don't really bake with a recipe as such. I kind of throw things in. So I looked at a few recipes for the flour, and to me, I just feel like I'm not sure whether that will work for me. So I'm just gonna continue with the same creaming method, and this time I am going to try using 1 cup of almond flour and 1 cup of regular flour with the teaspoon of baking powder, a pinch of salt, and what did I do with the margarine? The margarine I put in half a cup of margarine, but because I want to keep the sugar down, I still kept that to 1/4 of a cup of the sugar. So 1/4 cup of sugar, half a cup of margarine. I'm going to use 2 or 3 eggs, and I'll define that after I finish. 1 cup of almond flour, and 1 of regular flour, and definitely this as well, the same 1 teaspoon. So I think that's it. So in the interest of time, I have already creamed in this part. I'm gonna add the egg, then add the flour and the essence, and then come back to you. So here's my creamed mixture, and I am adding my almond and my flour gradually. So I've taken about 1/4 of the 2 of them, and then we're just going to mix them together. Now I really am not keen on the fact that the almonds are brown. I did try to sift them, but it still seems that with my sieve, it still allowed too many of the holes in, so I'm just gonna have to go with whatever the color of this thing turns out like. But the flour the ground almonds that I'm used to using don't have any brown bits in it. So, you know, to be honest, I'm not sure how this will turn out, but we'll continue. So I've mixed the first part, and I'm just going to continue mixing the flour in and seeing if my estimates are good. So here is my pie crust, my second pie crust, that has a generous layer of jam on top. And I do want to say that the recipes that I looked at, I should turn it this way, the recipes that I looked at, they did give another step. When you take the pie crust out of the oven and remove the peas, what they did was use egg white and brushed the egg white on the circle part, the base, and put it back in the oven for a couple of minutes. And I think what that does is sort of seal the base of the pastry, again, to stop it being soggy. And I tend not to do that. I just make sure that I just leave it in long enough to be able to start that process of cooking, and then I just put my jam on. So I just want to show you my mixture. So with this mixture, I better move that before I drop it. I have used about 3/4 of a cup equally for the almond powder or ground almonds, and the same amount with the flour. Probably if I do this again, I would try it with more almond powder. So maybe 3/4 a cup of almond powder and 1/4 of the flour. But because I'm sort of familiar with the mixture that I want, or consistency that I want, I'm just going to go with that, cover it, and put this in the oven and give it maybe about 45 minutes to cook, because I need that base to really be cooked well. So here's my pie, my tart, just about to go in the oven, and I used all of that mixture that I had there. I'm going to go over what I put in it again. So 3/4 of a cup of almond flour if you have it, and I would use 1/4 of a cup of regular flour. If not, it would be about 1.5 cups of regular flour. Then I used 1/2 cup of margarine, 1/4 cup of sugar because we're going to have the jam base, and I kept that. A pinch of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of almond extract, and 3 eggs. Yes, I beat 3 eggs and put in the mixture. So was it 3 or was it 2? The recipe calls for 3, so please use 3 eggs. So this is my my version of the tart before it goes in the oven. I think suggestion would be to try, before you attempt the larger version, I would try with the smaller ones first, just because they're easier to work with, and you know, after you've perfected that, then you can move on to this one. But I'm going to put this in the oven, and then I'm going to show you the end product of the other version. So here's my final product of the first small individual Bakewell tarts, the easy version. I've cut one in half so that you are able to see how it looks when you are going to bite into it. So you see we've got the pastry on the bottom, the jam we can see, the sponge on the top, and the flakes of almond on the bottom, on the top as well. So this is the easy version of the Bakewell tart. Remember, it's just a sponge mixture on top of a pastry with jam, and the flaked almonds and the almond taste. So the main thing is that you get your almond flavor into the recipe. So I'm just going to start the cleanup job, and whilst the other one is cooking, and then I'll show you the end product of the other. I am going to put some cherries on the larger one, but I'm just going to wait until that rises halfway and then put the cherries on the top when it's a little bit firmer. Okay, hope you enjoy. So here are my finished Bakewell tarts, the easier version, the more almond version, and it is, as I say, a little bit more fiddly dealing with the pastry, but I'm hoping it's gonna taste good when it comes out. But yeah, this is the conclusion of the Bakewell Tart tutorial, finishing very late at night, but at least my tarts look good. So with that, I will say good night. And there is my kitty. Hello everyone. I'm sitting out here on my porch the next day after doing my Bakewell Tarts very late at night, and I just would like to do a little bit of an evaluation just to end this video. So using the almond flour, I found was not necessary. I went to a lot of trouble to get it from the bulk barn, and found that having the brown pieces just ground into it didn't make it look the way that I wanted, and also it did not make a huge difference to the taste of almond using the almond powder. Sorry about the background. I'll just wait. So having tasted both of them, I usually do it the first way that I showed you, and to be honest, I think that that is the simpler method, even though the second way is the more authentic method. My suggestion would be that you would try it, if you're going to, with the mini pie shells, because they are easier to work with than the larger pie shell, and then you don't need to do the extra step to put the soup or rice or whatever you're using to weight it down. The smaller pie shells cook really quickly. The other thing is, don't buy the almond flour if you're not really trying to make it completely authentic. It tastes just as good, if not even, for me, my preference, I preferred it with just the almond extract. So all you will need is basic ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs, the main almond essence, and your pie shells, and of course jam. So I do hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something about my British background, namely how Bakewell Tart has influenced it. And yes, Bakewell Tart is usually one of the things that you might have in high tea or tea parties, especially if the little tarts are, you might have it for dessert after Sunday dinner or after any dinner, and served with cream or ice cream or custard. So that's it for our trip to England in this episode. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.